Alright, you cheeky swines, it's time to tackle Series 3 of Doctor Who. Back in the day, Doctor Who became a Saturday night ritual for everyone in the UK. Well, maybe not for normal people, but a third series was announced merely 2 months after a second was confirmed. For the first time in my life, I had to watch Doctor Who without Rose, so Martha would have had to have made a big impression or else. This is why we're starting at the beginning and working our way through it week by week. So which episodes will you be covering, Harry? Well, I love Shakespeare, so Shakespeare Code is a must. Gridlock, maybe. Definitely gonna dabble in the controversial New York Dalek story, but Lazarus, I'm gonna skip. 42 is an absolute must, for obvious reasons. Human Nature and Family of Blood are 2 of my faves. Blink I cannot possibly miss. And then a mega review of the finale. But it'll be a mega review because the ambitious bastards wanted a 3-part finale that year. What this means is I'll potentially be reviewing all the episodes of Series 3 bar 1, whilst we anxiously await Series 12 to reach our doorsteps. Don't forget, if I get 50 patrons, a Father's Day review will appear. So, without further ado, let's get on with the review. Series 3 starts off with the title card finally being the right colour, and we get to see Martha's family in a quick-fire series of phone calls. It seems absolutely ridiculous to watch in 2019 when group calls are a thing, but what I found really smart about this sequence was the hip-hop song playing underneath it all. It kind of feels like the family are getting verses and Martha's got the hook, like a big family hip-hop supergroup. Not to make stereotypical observations, but that's just the way it looks from where I'm sitting. And hell, it concisely introduces us to her snobby family and their little dramas, so get off your high horse and eat some crackers instead. One thing that Doctor Who does effectively is transform the normal into something not quite so normal in an unsettling fashion. This is something the episode Blink takes advantage of super well, but an example from this episode comes in the form of mild electric shocks. Everybody's had these seemingly inexplicable shocks at random points in their life, so we can immediately relate to Martha. Because we see it, the mystery makes one's head tilt, as though we should be wary in case this happens again. The same happens but in reverse also. When the Doctor bumps into Martha on the street to prove he has a tie, a circumstance that rarely happens to people, he is then seen shortly afterwards as a patient in the hospital. So the normalcy is reinstated, but because of the ordering of events, we are alerted once again to see how these sprinklings of breadcrumbs will pay off later on. These stranger elements culminate as the hospital gets zapped up to the moon, a rather creative decision if I do say so myself. We have a rather humorously drawn out selection of shots showing people all panicking over the moon. Fortunately, the only characters that aren't having a meltdown are the Doctor and Martha, and they quickly dispatch of her unnamed colleague for, crying? I mean, it's kind of funny because this extra is so laughably bad, but it makes the Doctor come off as a bit of a dick. Thanks for your concern about the air, but we have to open some doors and potentially let all the air out. A giant flipping building in central London is gonna have some windows open, so just a quick inside check could have sorted that out. Instead, a big dramatic scene of them opening a pair of doors allows the creators to bask in their brilliance. Betcha didn't think we'd do an episode of Doctor Who on the moon, did ya? Doesn't it look great? Fortunately, Martha doesn't have a short memory and remembers all the alien invasions Earth has faced over the past 3 years, including a cousin that looks eerily like her that died at Canary Wharf. Suddenly, the Doctor blurts out that he was there too, but he didn't specifically mention her, oddly. Now, considering their current situation, it seems fair why they might not want to delve into that hornet's nest, but Christ, your cousin was put to rest by the Doctor. It's kinda annoying that the Doctor doesn't even own up to this as far as I can recall. I guess with a new companion, there's a level of slate wiping that needs to happen, otherwise you linger too much on the old. This notion gets kicked into 5th gear though when we see the gigantic spaceship flying overhead, completely taking us by surprise. It was absurd enough to picture a hospital being transported to the moon with an air bubble, but now the snowball just keeps getting bigger and bigger. The super vibrant score attached to these wonderful special effects introduce the Judoon with eminence. More reactions from the cast are seen, but I think the editors should have made one slight change here. When the people in the hospital land on the moon, they all cry. When the Judoon land, they stare and gawp. Swap both footage around and you have a much better escalation of the situation in my opinion, making the ships even more outstanding. standing. Then Mr. Stoker gets vampired by the only character who isn't panicking, Mrs. Finnegan. Anne Reid gives a really visceral performance in this episode, subverting the expectation that this man would be the guy to confront the Judoon. More of that classic panicking ensues, and we're introduced to one of the most beautifully designed monsters Who has ever concocted. No wonder they're bringing them back next year. I mean, just look at them! You get this ascending shot of the body, ripped and full of gear, leading up to the helm, where the most ugly motherfucker is hidden underneath. How long do you reckon it took them to make that mask? It's gorgeous! These two shots are the reason why you don't need more than one Judoon taking their helmet off. This leader makes a big enough impression because of the close-up and his deep growling alien voice. Then to see them subvert the expectation again because they aren't here to kill anybody who's human was brilliant. This totally alien cataloguing, as they call it, was super fun to watch, alongside the Doctor commenting on the shop whilst all these people are getting their wrists marked and sonic cylinders pointed in their faces.
Witness the crime. Charge physical assault.
It was at this moment he knew. He fucked up.
As the episode progresses, we find out more about our new companion. Her being a doctor works well in the narrative's favour, for she can't honestly believe that the Doctor's an alien or possesses something called a sonic screwdriver. On the flip side, you'd maybe think she'd be smart enough to suspect the Doctor of having something to do with her workplace being sent to the moon. I think this would have made her character more interesting, because being proved doubly wrong by the end of the episode would start etching a trusting relationship between her and the Doctor. Instead, she's so starry-eyed for him that any questions of that nature just get thrown away. After finding her boss getting drained through a straw, however, she gets chased by the Night Stig until the Doctor outright kills him. I was always curious to find out what a face full of leather beneath the helmet would look like, but instead we have the Doctor shaking radiation into his shoes to distract us. It's certainly not unwelcome. Throwing his shoes into the bin was really funny, but really? No socks? The Doctor then kisses Martha and gets himself caught by the Plasmavore, who plans on frying half the population of the Earth. Hey, someone should introduce her to Thanos. It was kinda amusing because one common gripe with antagonists is that they spill out the details of their evil plan to the protagonists seemingly for no reason. Here, however, the Doctor acts like a clueless postman, keeping the act up to get all the info he needs, cleverly disguising and sacrificing himself in the name of justice. It's quite spine-chilling seeing Mrs. Finnegan slurping away, with the camera adding to this discomfort by spinning around so we get a full view of this hideous operation. The music blasting away indicates time is running out, and the Judoon also blast into the room just at the right time. This whole segment was fantastic, Martha taking charge and essentially convicting Mrs. Finnegan. Stunningly, the Plasmavore gets fried while screaming, "Burn in hell!" That was marvellous. So one problem is resolved, but the Judoon no longer have Judoonisdiction over the hospital on the moon, so everyone gets oxygen deprived. I found it quite interesting though, because most of the time this Judoon leader is put under quite bright lights to show him off, but as soon as he turns around and decides they're gonna leave, he's only half lit. Martha starts giving CPR to the Doctor, returning the kiss he gave her earlier.
Breathe into his mouth.
No, they don't teach that anymore!
What exactly carrying Martha in his arms is meant to represent, I have no idea. They return to Earth thanks to the kindness of the Judoon, where this junior doctor is giving it all that, both to a policeman and a radio broadcast. It's great hearing this perspective, because it makes this cowardly minor character act all big and tough after the fact to an amusing degree. It also gives context to this shot of Martha getting ready for the party, almost yearning to be back there. For once in her life, she wasn't worrying about exams or dealing with her family. This transitioned nicely into a shot of a puddle, despite it appearing to be just a shot of the moon, with the dream being quashed under Annalisa's heel. All of Martha's family quarrelling about the day's events are spectacular. It almost gives the impression that the children are looking after the parents as the younger try to calm the situation. Simultaneously, Martha's siblings argue with each other with her placed in between them, and then abandon her at the pub. Presumably there's a little bit of middle child syndrome going on here as well, which really makes this abandonment hurt for her more. In contrast to Rose, I quite like liked Martha's introduction in this episode. They both have this yearning to escape London, but are distinctly different in class, occupation, and desire. Martha's flirty interest in a man who essentially has a dead lover makes for an interesting romantic dynamic, as there certainly seems to be room for some friendly competition between them, with some awkwardness sprinkled on top. This change of having romantic companions is certainly unique to the reboot, perhaps more specifically to Davies' time in office, but I've never had much of a problem with it myself. Then again, I haven't seen much of the classic series to compare it to either, and am therefore accustomed to romance being an integral part of the show. Either way, I'm looking forward to refreshing my memory with regards to Martha developing as a companion as I review this series.
It's my pleasure, Mr. Smith.
Hey, that's the opening title sequence, you cheapskates! So, did it suck? Nah. This is quite the episode to kick a series off with. I like Martha. Her family are introduced concisely, and as a character she worked really well, testing the Doctor and giving him a good feel for the kind of man he is. The music's great, the ideas and craft that went into this story are fantastic. You have great characters and a stunning alien of the episode. The Judoon are definitely what lifts this episode into greatness for me. It's not perfect, it feels slightly too big for its own boots sometimes, and has a few missed opportunities, but apart from that, this is a super solid Doctor Who episode. I give Smith & Jones an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video was posted on my Patreon page yesterday. Join the club and get early access to Harry's content for as little as $1 a month. Do you think the Judoon will be as impressive next year as they were in 2007? Comment below or join us in the Discord server, link is in the description, where we will continue this discussion.
But in hell!